Hello and welcome to Mastering Microsoft Power Query video series. This is video number 23. In this video, we are going to see an excellent use of the transformation tool Pivot and UnPivot. In the earlier videos, we understood Pivot and UnPivot will help you to convert rows into columns and columns into rows, but can it do anything more than that? Let's check it out in this video. Okay, so now I am in a blank Excel to start the process to understand what's the interesting use of Pivot and UnPivot tool in Power Query apart from transforming rows into columns and columns into rows. So let's go ahead and launch the Power Query editor. So I go to the Data tab, Get Data, Launch Power Query Editor. So once the Power Query Editor is launched, I'm going to go for the new source, click the file menu, Excel workbook, and I'm going to the section, and the file which I'm going to use right now is sample data set 1. We're going to click import, and we're going to see the navigator dialog box quite shortly. Here we go, and it's asking which sheet is holding the data. Sheet 1, we could see the preview of it. And we're going to click OK, and that's going to bring the data into the Power Query editor. So I'm going to rename the query, and we're going to say cleaned data. So now you can see there are a couple of things here. The predominant problem what I had after the data is loaded, I had blank rows and blank columns. These are the issues we are facing. So generally, to remove the blank rows or blank columns, for removing the blank rows, we have been using the remove rows option. We could use remove blank rows. For blank columns, we have been using choose columns. But what I'm going to show you, instead of using remove blank rows and choose columns, can Pivot and UnPivot can handle this. So let's go ahead and check it out. Can I remove the blank rows and blank columns using the Pivot and UnPivot? Removing the blank rows, I don't think it's going to add up much value when you go by Pivot and UnPivot. But I really like it in terms of removing the blank columns. This is much faster, because even if the blank columns are in different place tomorrow, I don't have to worry. It's going to be considered. Except the blank columns, everything else is going to be considered, so I don't have to worry. So but if I go for choose columns, I would have chosen certain columns. Tomorrow any extra data column comes in, obviously it's not going to pick it up. We're going to lose that. I need to go back and edit the query. But that's not the case when you go by the Pivot and UnPivot process, especially to remove the blank columns and keep only the data containing columns. So let's go ahead and check it out. How do we do this process right now? So I'm going to go and accept the promote headers step, accept the change type step. No problem for me. But let's say in this case, we already agreed as a best practice, change type will always be at the end of our work, not in the middle of it. So we're going to get rid of the change type guy. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a guy who's going to help us right now to get this task better. So I'm going to go to the add column, and I'm going to go to the one which says index column. So it's like a serial number column. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to say, why don't you create an index column where it starts the indexing from the number 1. So the moment I do it, you can see the last column we got the index column. So the first step, what I'm going to do, the data which is in column wise, I'm going to put them into row wise, except the index column. So from a column to row, if I have to convert, then I have to go for the choice which is UnPivot. So I'm going to right click on this index column having selected. I'm going to go to the option UnPivot other columns. The moment I do it, look at this kind of a strange behavior on the data. So now you can see there is all these blank columns got removed now. So there is no concept of null anywhere here. You can see here all the blank columns got removed. We got only the columns repeating with its respective data. Yeah, which you could see here. Now I could see even the blank rows are also taken out when I do this process. So wherever I have the values, only they are mapped and kept. Now I need to bring it back to the actual way to make it to look like a table again. So I want to select the attribute, and I'm going to go to the transform, and this time I'm going to say pivot column, And it's going to come in like this, where I'm going to say, why don't you pivot this based on values? But when you put these row-wise data into column, but make sure that you don't aggregate it. I want you to simply map it as it is. Do not do any kind of aggregation. So the moment I click OK, now you can see it. We have removed the blank columns and there is no blank rows. Everything is perfectly cleaned up, and all I have to do just remove this index from my side and the data is perfect, good to go. All I have to do, final step, is just select one column, Control A. I'm going to set the data type for it. Transform tab, detect data type. Everything is perfect. So we're good to go. But I want to check tomorrow if my data set changes, will it handle same kind of things even in the new data set, which is completely in different way. But there also I want to remove the blank columns and blank rows. So let's check it out how we can handle it. So I'm going to go ahead and change the source to check. Right now the source is dataset 1. I'm going to change it to another file, dataset 2. I'm going to click on the tick mark to take that change. I'm going to go to the last step, and I think it has done it for that new data set as well. So that is something amazing. So pivot and unpivot will help you to remove the blank rows and blank columns, which is very important, dynamically, irrespective of the positions. Tomorrow any extra data column comes in, you don't have to worry. That extra data column will also be considered during this process. All right, I hope you guys have enjoyed this particular knowledge sharing. We'll meet you again with another interesting input in the world of Power Query. Until then, take care of yourself. Signing off, Hariharan.